This guy has had one of the greatest years as an announcer. He had the opportunity to call the World Series champions, the Washington Nationals game. It was unbelievable, and I was so happy that they beat those crummy Houston Astros. We are now going to be talking to play-by-play announcer Charlie Slows. What's going on, Charlie?
Not a lot. That's for sure. Not a lot is going on.
Well, how are you and your family?
We're good. Everybody's good. Everybody's healthy. My wife and my younger son were at my home in Florida outside Tampa. I was getting ready to go back to West Palm Beach for one more trip before heading north for the start of the season when everything got shut down. So this is where I did my quarantine, which has not exactly been a great hardship because when it was cold everybody where else in the middle of March, it was pretty nice here. And so we've been able to, do our bike rides and our runs outside and walks and swim in our pool. And things are opening up a little bit down here. The beaches are open now, social distancing and restaurants, 25% capacity and outdoor seating. So it's what if you want to take that risk, you can. The gym's open today where you could work out on a limited basis for about 80 minutes, and then they say you have to leave. And uh, I wondered how they were going to do this, besides just wiping down equipment, but they apparently have some ultraviolet spray cleaner that goes over all the equipment and supposedly kills everything.
I'm sure you believe all about that.
What do we know what to believe? What do we know what to believe at this point, right?
Oh my God, this whole thing has been just a terrorizing thing. Not only
And it
here,
really depends which news channel you're watching,
right?
whether you think you're watching coverage of the same planet.
Oh my God. Well, first things first. I don't know if you're a basketball fan. Have you checked out the Last Dance, the documentary on the 1998 Chicago Bulls?
All 10.
Really?
I worked in the NBA for 11 years, so that went. I was in another life the radio voice of the Washington Bullets
Really?
before they became the Wizards and before Michael Jordan came out of retirement to play for them. So my years were 86, 87 through 96, 97. So that was right through the Bird Magic era. Dr. J's last year was my first year in the NBA. Watching him as a kid growing up when he was playing on the island with the Nets.
Hmm.
Kevin Lockery was the coach wearing those leisure suits in the 70s. And so, that was great. I thought my time in the NBA was maybe, the best for the league. It was after their really dark time in the 70s where attendance was really poor. And, then Bird and Magic kind of put the league on the map. And then Jordan came into the league in 84. And you had the Lakers, Celtics back and forth era, and before the Pistons came along, and then the Bulls, and that was all during my time in the NBA. Not like the team I was calling was doing much of anything at that time. In my 11 years calling their games, we made the playoffs the first 2 years and the last year. That's three times in 11 years when 50% of every team in the league made the playoffs.
Do you think the Bulls would have won a seventh championship if they kept the team together in '99?
Wow. Well, how old would Jordan have been then? Like 37, 36?
I think
I have to look back at
I think
that.
he'd be
Maybe he was
36. I think he would have been
36.
36. And he said that he was at the top of his game. He changed his game as an NBA player. He didn't use his athleticism more than he worked on his shot, and he had his best shooting year as an NBA player in '98.
You know what I noticed? When you don't see something for a long time, you kind of view it differently. And, before the Jordan thing, all you thought about since January was the death of Kobe Bryant, seeing the highlights, the 60-point game, highlights of his career and his moves. And I'll tell you, I mean, if he didn't pattern everything he did after Michael Jordan, uh, but you realize how phenomenal Jordan was to do what he did. Take most people would go out of the league, couldn't come back, after a year and a half and do what he did and get in condition as quickly as he did. And then you're right, at the tail end of his career, trying to limit the energy use to make everybody really make use of his teammates on the floor to make his to spread the wealth around a little bit, but still have the ability, like when Pippen hurt his back, to just take over a game like that.
Right.
But still, set up Steve Kerr to hit a winning shot when he knew he was going to be double teamed. I mean, what you saw in that was really interesting. How much you'd hear of what was mic'd up timeouts with Phil Jackson. Say, okay, you're going to switch. It's like, no, I'm not switching. I'm not switching. I'm staying with him. I'm not switching. So, and him talking to the other players, he really was a coach on the floor. He was directing traffic. And it sounded like most guys did what they did because they wanted to win and they were afraid of it.
Well, I'd be afraid of him too, how dominant he was and how superior he was from everybody on the basketball court. It was incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Well, they say when you walk, how's that go? You walk the talk the walk. I mean, he backed everything up. All you had to do was give him a little incentive. I remember working games with, I don't know if you guys remember when David Dupree was the national NBA writer for USA Today for many years.
Yes, I do. My partner over here was not even alive for that.
Well, he covered, the first dream team, the Olympics.
Right.
And they went through their training camp, in France, on the French Riviera. When they weren't practicing for the Olympics, they were all in the gambling casinos. And that's, the private rooms for all those guys. Jordan is like you'd see in The Last Dance, where, you're betting on coin flips. They're flipping coins against the wall with the security guards. He would bet you on anything. It didn't matter. If there were two ants crossing the floor, his ant was gonna beat you. He was gonna, lay money, lay odds on it. He was just competitive with everything.
Maybe that's why he's worth $2 billion.
Now, think about this. Think about when you see in The Last Dance, the crowds especially when they were in Europe or after winning a championship, in the Olympics. And you see the rock star treatment that he received. This was before, if you can imagine, because these days, I tell people there was a time when I didn't have a cell phone. Like you couldn't get a hold of me. I couldn't get a hold of. We actually had to get to a payphone and put coins in to make a call. There was no social media. There was no social media to promote like there is now, where you are promoted or people who are self-promoters. He did nothing to promote anything. Nike did by the shoes and some of his other endorsements. I don't know if anyone could be as popular as he was.
It's absolutely incredible. And Charles Barkley said it best. There's only two players he's ever been around that are close to as popular as each other, and that's Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan. That's it. He says not even LeBron James even comes close to what Michael Jordan was on the basketball court, even as a god all over the country. And what was so great about episode 10, when David Stern, the late, great David Stern, rest in peace, he said that the league had about 98 countries when Jordan came into the league. The league was followed by 98 countries. By the time he was done with his career, over 200 countries.
I think it's a 215. Yeah.
Yes. So it's incredible.
That's how, you started having players from all the different countries coming over here. Yao Ming from China. You saw the part with Tony Kukoc, and now all of the European
Luka
players
Doncic,
who play in the
Porzingis.
NBA.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, Drazen Petrovic with the Nets. That was one of the early ones, a rarity.
Mm-hmm.
That was during my time calling games in the NBA.
He was awesome. Absolutely a shame what happened to him. Awesome player.
Certainly was.
As you guys know, we are talking to the Nationals play-by-play announcer, Charlie Slows. Let's get into some baseball. And you got to call the World Series, and yes, the Washington Nationals are now the World Series champions, and hopefully there will be a season so we can actually see the banner be raised, and we get to see those beautiful, beautiful rings, and you're going to get one as well. So what were your thoughts of the World Series and that three-headed monster pitching staff from Scherzer, Strasburg, and Corbin?
Well, by the time they got to the World Series, we really thought, while they were a big underdog against the Houston Astros, we felt pretty good about their chances. They were on a roll. I mean, and while a lot of people thought, well, the 6-day layoff is going to just kill the momentum that they had built in sweeping the Cardinals in four straight after coming from behind to beat the Dodgers with the tremendous Game 5, 10th inning grand slam by Howie Kendrick, and then the great pitching against the Cardinals just wiped them out in four games. But I thought at that point, with the way that Davey Martinez and his pitching coach Paul Menhart had used the staff with Strasburg pitching 3 innings in relief in the wild card game and coming back to pitch in game 2 in the division series, and Scherzer pitched in relief as well. And Patrick Corbin had a bunch of appearances in relief that were better than his starts, including the 3 scoreless innings in Game 7 of the World Series following Scherzer. So, I mean, they used their best to the max. They minimized the use of the bullpen, certainly in the games where they were ahead, to really just stick to Doolittle and Daniel Hudson and Tanner Rainey for some big outs. Those were the guys they went to, other than the starting pitchers in relief. So with that and the fact that they had an older team, I thought the 6 days off was a big help. The fact is, it turned out that they needed to prepare for the Astros, multiple signs and everything they had learned from their scouts and from other teams. I think it created the perfect setup and the perfect storm, and they really didn't lose any momentum. And, you're coming from behind in every game that you won. It really was an amazing series to see, because then they had so much trouble scoring in the games in Washington against the Astros. And then Game 5 was a total shock that Scherzer couldn't pitch. I mean, obviously I'm biased in the position I was sitting in of how I wanted to see that series play out and the Nationals win. But if you were just a baseball fan that took that series in, I really haven't asked how many people. I've had so many people come up to me and say it was just a tremendous World Series. It was so exciting, great storylines. But I've said, well, you're saying that because you're my friend and the Nationals won, or you really believe it was one of the most entertaining World Series?
Charlie, the Nationals obviously were in the playoffs a lot in the last 8 years or so. And again, many postseason chokes over the years. What game during the postseason this season made you say, all right, this team is different, they can actually do it?
I'd go right to the wild card game. I mean, you were down 3-0 early in the game, and you're down 3-1 when Josh Hader comes into the 8th inning to try and get a 6-out save. What are your odds there? Hader's, arguably certainly the top lefty reliever in the game, and maybe the best. And they were able to score against him. Soto gets that big hit. All the times things have gone wrong for the Nationals in the postseason, a call not going that way, a strike 3 not called against the Cardinals in 2012, interference on a backswing hitting Matt Wieters in the ball going through his legs in Game 5 against the Cubs in 2017. I could go on and on, all the things, different things that happen in decisive Game 5s. But in that wild card game, you get a base hit by Soto, and Trent Grisham, who had no play anywhere. All he had to do was take a knee, field the ball, and throw it to second. And he charged the ball to scoop it like he was going to make a throw somewhere. And the ball had spin and took a bounce to his right and went by him. And Rendon, who would have stopped at second, ends up scoring from first, 3-run score on the play. And then Daniel Hudson comes on in the 9th inning and gets them out seemingly in like 2 seconds, and they're on to Los Angeles. So from that moment on, we felt really good. When they beat the Dodgers, who everybody and their mother, 106-win Dodger team, no one thought you could beat them. There were some baseball people who thought the Nationals maybe had the best chance because of their pitching, but the Dodgers were heavily favored. And I think once they beat the Dodgers, I really felt, even though the Cardinals had that 10-run inning and beat the Braves in Game 5, I felt like the Braves would have been a tougher opponent for the Nationals. Certainly based on playing in the regular season, the Nationals didn't play well against the Braves, lost that season series. So we were kind of happy to see the Cardinals, and that really worked to an advantage for the Nationals.